Families of captives have been joined by thousands of Israelis in Tel Aviv demanding that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaches a deal to secure their release. Protests have been taking place each week since the war began. Now they're being held almost every day. Many of the families accuse Netanyahu of sabotaging a potential agreement, putting the lives of captives at risk. Elsewhere in Tel Aviv, hundreds of Palestinian Israelis have been protesting. They're calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. They say Israel must allow desperately needed aid into the Strip. Hamdah Salhut's following developments from Jordan's capital. She's in Amman because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and in the occupied West Bank.
Israeli demonstrators taking to the street on Saturday night calling for a ceasefire deal to bring home the remaining 50 Israeli captives still held in Gaza. Now, the family members of the hostages say that Netanyahu has lied to the public and has deceived them, and they say that the framework that's on the table that Hamas already agreed to, Israel should take. Now, it comes after a long week of demonstrations and a strike that started off the week on Sunday, followed by a massive rally of nearly 500,000 people right in the heart of Tel Aviv. Now, earlier on Saturday, we saw Palestinian citizens of Israel also protesting, but for a different reason. Now, they're calling for a ceasefire because they want to see an end to the suffering amongst the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. They're calling for an end to the war, an end to the bombardment, and to stop the siege and allow humanitarian aid in. And while demonstrations we typically see on Saturday only call for the release of the captives, this time, these Palestinians are calling for an end to the violence in the Gaza Strip. Hamdah, Salhut, Al Jazeera, Amman.
Yossi Mekelberg is a senior consulting fellow with the Middle East and North Africa program at Chatham House. He's joining us from London. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. I understand that supporters of the captives in Gaza had wanted the government to explain their policy on negotiations for getting them out of Gaza, and apparently the Israeli Supreme Court has set a deadline for the government to do that. There is a cabinet meeting, I understand, going ahead on Sunday within the next few hours. Any idea of what we're likely to hear from that?
Good morning. No one trusts, among the families of the hostages and many among the wider population in Israel, in the Israeli government's decisions right now when it comes to the hostages. It's even the military said, when Israel decided to expand, the government decided to expand the war in Gaza and enter into Gaza City, that it's going to put the hostages at risk. There is no accurate intelligence where the hostages are, otherwise they will try to release them. And every day goes by, we saw that also the hostages are suffering from starvation, that's whether they're going to survive. So they are trying, the families of those who support them, and we are talking about tens of thousands that show every week in the streets. We saw a huge protest last Sunday of nearly 500,000 people because they just don't trust this government, because they have completely other motives than releasing the hostages.
Help me out with some context, Yossi, if you would. I do understand that there is still a significant number of voters in Israel who do support the war in Gaza and are backing what the Netanyahu coalition is doing. Nevertheless, of course, as you're just referring to, we're seeing an increasing number of Israelis who are coming onto the streets demanding that there should be a ceasefire, predominantly to save the lives of Israeli soldiers, we should make that clear, but also, of course, to get the captives back. Yet that doesn't seem to have any resonance at all with the coalition. What do you think the dynamic is? Why is it that the coalition seems to be deaf to what they're hearing in the streets?
We have to separate between two things. That's, most Israelis are in complete denial, and I will claim willful denial what's happening in Gaza, when there is the number of casualties, the destruction, the starvation. They take the Israeli government's version that it's all invented. They just refuse to accept that, what is actually happening in Gaza, how horrific the situation. They're not against fighting Hamas, but in their priority, returning the hostages, ending the war as a result of it, is their top priority. As for the Israeli government, they are, when it comes to the Israeli public or even the international community public, they are completely tone deaf. Their priority is completely different. Much of it is to do with the ultra-right, the messianic elements within this government that put pressure on Netanyahu, and Netanyahu is basically blackmail them because it doesn't have any alternative for a government. He tried either to delay election until they're due in October 2026, or sometimes that it's convenient for him, and much of it has to do with his corruption trial. And that's the situation right now in Israeli politics when there is no alternative to this government.
I want to widen this out a little bit because, of course, what is happening in Gaza is only part of a wider series of assaults by the Israeli government. We're also seeing in the West Bank Israeli bulldozers moving through Palestinian villages, bulldozing towns, razing them to the ground. Talk to us about how what we're seeing in Gaza is also part of a wider picture.
Yeah, I mean, we see it for months. Well, this is kind of what you described as making the occupation of the West Bank harsher and harsher, bulldozing refugee camps, whether it's in Jenin and in Tulkarm. Let's get it right. This Israeli government, especially the elements of what, the ultra-right, they see all what happened since October 7 as an opportunity. Few of them even refer to this as a miracle. And for them, there is an opportunity at the end of the day to occupy and annex eventually what they see as greater Eretz Israel. That's their aim. And if it's involved, for instance, in Gaza, pushing most of the Palestinians out of Gaza, probably eventually also West Bank, so be it. We saw the announcement of building 3,000 housing units in E1. E1, if this has happened, this is completely cut off East Jerusalem from the West Bank. They will do anything in their capacity to prevent a two-state solution, any idea of a Palestinian self-determination.
We appreciate you giving us your analysis, Yossi. Thank you very much indeed. Yossi Mekelberg.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.